Hello everyone, this is Family Stress, Chapter 17, Highlights. Alright, let's talk about family. So family is a set of intimate and personal relationships. Nuclear family consists of a married couple and their children. And we have an extended family, which includes relatives other than spouses and children, such as aunts, uncles, and cousins. Your family can also include non-blood relatives, friends, teammates, sorority sisters, fraternity brothers, and pets. Just take a moment and think about who is a part of your family. All right, so different types of families. So we have single parent, where either the mother or the father is absent due to separation, divorce, or death. A blended family is a family consisting of a couple and their children from this and previous relationships. Same-sex family is a gay or lesbian couple and their family. And then dysfunctional families are troubled families. And this dysfunction can stem from a variety of different reasons, whether it's abuse or drugs or alcohol or disagreements over beliefs and values. Regardless of your family, the type of family that you have, you know that living with others, even if you don't live in the same household, being a part of each other's lives is going to cause some stress. So let's talk about marriage really quickly, because, when we start a family, for some people that means getting married. And marriage definitely can be joyful with couples sharing happiness, but it can also lead to stress as, these two individuals who have lived apart now come together and they must accommodate each other. So there was a study that was conducted of married couples, and they asked which qualities made their marriage successful, and these were the top 6 qualities that were reported: honesty, love, trust, communication, respect, and commitment. Okay, so I wanted to discuss love languages. So this is not in the textbook, but when you are in a relationship, it is important that you and your significant other have a conversation about which love languages each of you respond to. Stress can occur when a partner is using a different love language from the ones that their partner would like to receive. I often hear from many college students that their significant other isn't showing them that they love them, but in reality, they are demonstrating love. It's just that they're demonstrating their love in a different love language. So these are the 5 different love languages. The first is words of affirmation. So these are verbal compliments that express your love and appreciation. So this could be, encouraging your partner, empathizing with them, and actively listening to them. Acts of service, performing any act that eases the burden of responsibility. So this includes things like helping them with household chores, maybe you make them breakfast, but you're going out of your way to help alleviate their daily workload. And then we have quality time. So this is focused and undivided attention spent together. So this is, we're putting our cell phones away, we're putting them on silent. We are having uninterrupted and focused time together, whether, that is engaging in a conversation, maybe taking a walk outside together, or even going away for a weekend. And then we have giving gifts. So these are tangible symbols that reflect your thoughtfulness and effort. This is a thoughtful gift or a gesture. It can be little things, a flower, a nice card with a written note inside of it. And then finally, we have physical touch. So physical touch is a non-sexual touch that reinforces your presence. So this could be, maybe a hug, holding hands, sitting close to one another, or using, body language and touch to emphasize that you love that person. Moving on to cohabitation. So this is romantically involved couples living together, although they are not married. This is very prevalent among young adults, the widowed, the separated, and the divorced. There are many different reasons why individuals cohabitate. Usually the uncertainty, you're unsure, you don't know if you want to spend the rest of your life married. So maybe you'd like to test the waters a little bit, you'd like to live with that person for at least a year, just to see if you are truly compatible. Other reasons include the convenience of sharing household responsibilities, and financial benefits, sharing expenses, are significant factors when it comes to deciding to cohabitate. And fun fact, cohabitation was actually illegal in all 50 states up until the 1970s. So, before the 1970s, if you wanted to live with somebody, you had to be married. All right, let's talk about some family stressors. So, the dual career family. So this is where both parents work. And both parents have to work because life and children are expensive. Paying for childcare, clothing, medical care, schooling, extracurricular activities, affording a house here in the Bay Area. We usually see a lot of dual career families here in the Bay Area just because it's so expensive to live here. Still talking about the dual career family, the woman, if we're looking at an air quote traditional relationship, the woman usually ends up taking on two roles. She takes on the role as the career woman, but also as the homemaker. She's taking care of work responsibilities, and home responsibilities. And sometimes a lot of working moms also worry about missing out while their small child is at home and they are at work. And then children. Raising children can cause a lot of stress because family members will need to adjust to their rapid changes. They're constantly growing. At the very beginning of a child's life, when they're in infancy, parents are sleep deprived, they're exhausted, and that causes a lot of physical stress. As they start to get older, they start to grow and mature. They develop both physically, mentally, and socially. And eventually you'll reach the teenage angst years, and teenagers will be giving their parents a lot of trouble. So a lot of stress there. Moving on to family planning. So before starting a family, it is very important to discuss these questions, methods of contraception, and if abortion would ever be an option. Also asking your significant other, how many children would you like to have? Because if one partner wants 2 children and another partner wants 6, then there's something very significant that needs to be discussed there. What type of birth control are we going to use? Who is going to be responsible for the birth control, the man or the woman? Are there any religious prescriptions that they are adhering to? And finally, how much risk, both in terms of their health and in terms of, chances of pregnancy, are they willing to accept? Moving on to adoption. So we have 2 different types of adoption. We have closed adoption, where there's no contact between the birth parents and the adoptive parents, and then an open adoption, where contact is allowed between the birth parents and the adoptive parents. And there's a lot of stress that is associated with adoption. There's a stress associated with the inability to conceive children. The adoption process is very stressful, and placing a child up for adoption as well. And in the future, that adopted child might experience stress because they are considering seeking out their birth parents. And there's stress related to the search process. Well, coming from the adopted child, but as well as the adoptive parents, and even the birth parents. The adoption process can be very expensive, and if you and your spouse are adopting internationally, expenses can start to add up, agency fees, travel fees, passport fees, and if you are adopting privately, very, very expensive as well, agency, attorney fees, medical exam fees, mother health care fees, and more. Moving on to mobility. So family mobility is when we have family members that move away. And they can move away for a variety of reasons. Maybe we had some extended family move away for a job opportunity or for, an education opportunity. But that means that we have our social support, social support is no longer close to us. And in that case, we need to develop new relationships with others, with other friends or neighbors, so we can have that sense of social support. And it does take a while for these new relationships to become meaningful. And due to this family mobility, it may lead to a lack of involvement with our extended family. Maybe we aren't going to be able to see them as much. Maybe they used to live around the block, but now they've moved across the country, and maybe we get to see them maybe once every few years because it's so expensive to travel. Moving on to violence. So discussing child abuse and neglect, intimate partner violence, and domestic violence. So child abuse and neglect can be the results of drug abuse, poverty, economic stress, and a lack of parenting skills. And intimate partner violence, this is, having an abusive spouse, an abusive ex-spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend. And domestic violence is sexual, emotional, and property and economic abuse. Moving on to financial stressors. So financial stressors include, living in poverty, becoming unemployed, or working a minimum wage job. Usually if you work a minimum wage job, one job isn't enough to pay all of the bills, and that usually leads to having to get a second job. The inability to afford health insurance. Health insurance is very, very expensive if you don't have the opportunity to receive it through your job. Poor housing arrangements, not being able to afford childcare, so leaving children at home. And then educational costs. If you send your child to private school, it's going to be very expensive. Other stressors include, blended families, when we're having, two families come together and, all children from the previous relationship and the current relationship are coming together as one. And that can be very stressful for the children in that situation, getting along with their new step siblings. And then we have assisting elderly parents. So being able to care for your elderly parents, or the financial stress of providing care for your aging parents, and being able to provide quality care for your parents, very, very expensive. And then we have changes in sexual lives, so changes in the frequency of sexual intercourse between a couple, or maybe one of the individuals in that relationship has a change in desire, whether that change is, hormonal, or just, due to another change. And then we have raising children alone. So raising them alone in a single parent household, maybe their parents live apart, for the time being. Maybe we have a parent that is deployed in the military. Maybe there was a separation or a divorce and one parent gained full custody of that child or children. Or maybe there was, a death in the family and now you are the sole parent in that family. All right, last thing, I wanted to discuss the family stress model. You don't have to remember this, memorize it, but I just wanted to note, the family stressors, lack of finances, sexual dissatisfaction, raising children, role overload, ambiguity, conflict, specific to, household work, household chores. And then we have extra family stressors, so all of the things outside of the family, but can definitely have an effect on family life. And then the individual's characteristics, whether it's their level of self-esteem, anxiety, neuroticism, depending on that specific individual, that is going to affect the symptoms that they experience physically, as well as symptoms of disease, of the breakdown of the family. And if these symptoms continue, it will lead to physical disease such as heart disease and stroke, or it will lead to disease of the family such as divorce, spousal abuse, or child abuse. All right, that's it. That was